CBS Sports HQ presented by Capital One. Alabama entered the 2022 season in a familiar spot, number one in the preseason AP poll. It's the 7th time in 15 years under Coach Nick Saban that they've been top of the heap as the season begins. Since the preseason ranking started in 1950, only Oklahoma, with 10, has been number one in the initial poll more often than Bama. The Crimson Tide started last season number one and finished ranked number 2 after losing the national championship game to the SEC conference rival Georgia Bulldogs. Alabama opens their season against Utah State, a team they have not beaten by less than 30 points ever. Florida also facing a team from Utah. The last time they faced the Utes, the world was reeling from the death of Elvis Presley, so it's been a while. And Brent Venables starts his era as the new man at Oklahoma. His team gets Conference USA side UTEP for their Week 1 opponent. The Sooners more than 4 touchdown favorites. All right, we are running through Week 1 picks with our quartet of wagering experts, Kenny White, John Berger, Chip Patterson, and Emory Hunt. Now, whether or not Alabama wins over Utah is not in question. The spread is huge, 42 points, 6 touchdowns. So we may know which way this game is likely headed. The total set at 63. Both of those are big numbers. So, Kenny, what do you do with that, or do you just skip it and look elsewhere for value?
If they put a number on the board, I'm going to compare what I made the number, and we'll see if we can find some value. And I think we have value in this football game. I don't like laying this many points or even taking this many points. I've never had a good track record taking big underdogs, because anything can happen late in these games, and the better team could put up 2-3 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter. You never know. Or they could sit on the ball and not score like Minnesota did the other night against New Mexico State. But I'm going to attack the total because I think that's where most weaknesses are in the betting market. I'm going to go over this total of 62.5. We've seen Nick Saban. He every year he gets better, and he changes his offense to make it more dynamic each and every year. He used to be a very conservative coach that relied on his defense. He now relies on his defense, but he loves to score points, and that's what this Alabama team's going to do. Bryce Young, he will light it up today against a weaker Utah State defense. Great skill position players, the offensive line. They will score at will in this game. And on the other side, Utah State, I love Blake Anderson, one of the best coaches in the country people don't know about, one of the best bowl game coaches, but being prepared and having his team ready to play, he is one of the best. He was 10-4 ATS. He's got a quarterback in Logan Bonner. They can put points, a couple points on the board. Doesn't need to put up many. If he can get me 1 touchdown, maybe 10 points today, that's all I need. They do return 11 guys on offense with 8+ starts. Forget about last week's game versus Connecticut. They went through the motions in like just a little scrimmage. They wanted to save everything for Alabama. Obviously, they're way outmatched here, but I think they can put a couple touchdowns on the board. I'm going over the total.
Kenny's making me sweaty. Almost talked me into like Alabama on the money line. It's like minus 8 million to 1 or something like that. This one's not hard for me. That kind of number at plus 42. I think this is a situation where you take the over. I like that. I like that bet coming from Kenny. I also think you take Utah State. Understand that we see this every year in the first 2 or 3 games that Bama plays at this kind of number. They're 10-18 against the spread when they're plus 34 or better. So I think this situation screams the over. Take Utah State and the points. Alabama's going to score at will, but I do think you can get some garbage scores out of Utah State. I think that's the direction to go.
Don't bet this game. Well, maybe bet the over. That sounds all right. But if you're going to take a side, take Alabama, because even though you would start with a 42-0 lead just at the beginning of the game at kickoff, you still might lose that 42-0 lead. You might lose it in the first half. So I'm going to say Alabama, and I'm going to lay these points. I think that this Crimson Tide offense, Jermaine Burton comes in at wide receiver. Jahmyr Gibbs might end up being an All-American at running back. What he can do not only as a runner but as a pass catcher out of the backfield is going to be a real difference maker. I think Alabama's offensive line has grown up. It's going to be one of the best Alabama teams that we've seen quite in some time, and obviously that standard is very high. And while Utah State was able to play in Week 0, they're going to go through what I like to call competitive whiplash, because in Week 0 you played UConn, and in Week 1 you play Alabama. And somewhere between that, it's going to be a little bit tough for them to deal with. So I'll take the Tide.
I'll go one step further, Chip. I look at Jahmyr Gibbs as your Doak Walker winner, and is going to be in New York for the Heisman Trophy. I can't believe they allowed Alabama to get one of the best players in football to an already stacked offense. And you talked about Utah State playing UConn last week. Yeah, you played UConn and you struggled with UConn. Now, granted, Jim Moore Jr. did a great job with that defense. They were playing up front. They were playing a great press on the outside. I struggled to see Utah State crossing the 50-yard line in this game. So I have no confidence in Utah State's offense against Alabama. I'm laying those 42 points, and I'm going to do something about my day elsewhere because I'm not worried about them against Alabama.
All right, top of the board in terms of the ranked games, though. Number 2, Ohio State welcoming number 5, Notre Dame to the Horseshoe. Our Dennis Dodd hinted the spread here indicates Notre Dame might be overrated or the spread makers aren't paying attention here. Emory, start us off with your thinking for this one.
I'm thinking Ohio State has a better football team. They're going to be much better on defense. They have the much better quarterback in this game, and they have the much better running back in TreVeyon Henderson. So I agree. Notre Dame may be overrated. I feel like we still don't know enough. I still see them collapsing against Oklahoma State in that bowl game last year. So I have full confidence in the Buckeyes. I love Ohio State's mindset coming into this season. They want to get rid of what happened last year defensively, so lay those points comfortably with Ohio State.
I think this is one of those games we talked about off the top. Be careful with. It's a small swim lane. Ohio State does have the better team. Take them on the money line. I would take Notre Dame and the points. I would take the over. I'd put 3 bets on this game because of that skinny swim lane to make money. The biggest thing, guys, is offensively, you know what you're going to get out of Ohio State. This is going to be a top 2 or 3 team in the entire country, the entire season in terms of their scoring offense. You look on the defensive side of the ball with Jim Knowles brought in the defensive coordinator. This is a guy at Oklahoma State. When he got there, they're giving up 32 points a game. 4 years later, they leave. They're giving up 18. He's going to make a tremendous difference in this game. Sometimes Ohio State can start slow, especially at home, especially early in the season. I think back to the Oregon game last year. I don't think anybody on this set would have picked Oregon to win that game at home. I think Ohio State does have the better team. I just think be careful. Spread the bets. Put 3 out there. Ohio State's going to win the game. Be conservative, take Notre Dame in the points, but take the over because I think there's going to be a lot of scoring, especially from Ohio State offensively in the 3rd and 4th quarter.
Oh, yeah, John. We don't have to only mention the Oregon game last year. How about the Oklahoma game and Baker Mayfield planting that flag at midfield? How about Virginia Tech going into the shoe and getting a win back in 2014? If college football, and this game in particular, was played in a vacuum, in a simulation, Ohio State wins this game by 24 points, maybe even more. They light it up through the air, and they'd be able to just cruise to a victory. Jim Knowles' defense just stuffs out everything about Notre Dame. But this game is not played in a vacuum. It's played with by 18 to 22-year-olds under incredibly intense pressure. And I think that Notre Dame is going to go into this matchup and bring everything they've got for what it means for the beginning of the Marcus Freeman era. They don't like the way that things went in the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma State, against Jim Knowles, by the way. And so while everything on paper suggests that Ohio State's going to be able to go in there and cover the spread easily, the vibes, man, the vibes say that this thing is going to end up being a little bit close. Ohio State plays a little bit tight. Maybe they don't throw the ball as much as we want them to. Maybe this Buckeyes team just decides to lean on TreVeyon Henderson, and that leads to lower scoring and not covering this spread. So I'll take the Irish.
I'm going to take a little different approach, kind of the same approach everybody's taking. We're going to get points, but I'm going to just bet the first half over. I'm going to go over 31 in the first half. Again, first game of the year, what happens? The defense is not used to the speed. The number 1 defense has been going up against the number 2 offenses on their respected program. Big difference when they go up against the number 1 offense like Ohio State, and Notre Dame has enough team speed. I think they'll break a couple of plays. I like that Tommy Rees is back as the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. I think they'll be highly motivated. Obviously, knowing that you're a 17 or 16-point underdog, Notre Dame will be ready, be intense, but Ryan Day is a genius on offense. C.J. Stroud, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's got all of a prolific wide receiver core. TreVeyon Henderson at running back. There are so many weapons there for Ohio State. They will put points on the board, over 31 in the first half.
And the final game we want to look at, number 7, Utah in Gainesville to face Florida. The Gators facing a Pac-12 school for the first time since 1989. Now, the line moved closer to the Gators on Friday, but it's now back to the 2.5. The total sitting at 51 and a hook. John, what do you like about this one?
Take the over. Utah is going to show up, and I get all the conversation that you hear going into the swamp. It's not an easy place to play, especially in September, and it's sticky and it's hot and all those things. And, they talk about a hostile environment. Utah is not going to show up, be intimidated. These guys will show up. Whittingham's teams, they always show up, especially this one. I don't know what I'm going to get out of Florida. I have no idea. You've got a new head coach. You've got new schemes. You've got a veteran quarterback, veteran running back, skill players on Utah side of the ball. I think this is going to be a lot closer than people think. But I think you take the over in this situation. I think there's going to be some points scored. I just don't have enough confidence in what we're going to get out of Florida to have any understanding how this spread is hit. But I think Utah is going to score some points. Both sides are, and that's the direction we're going here.
Yeah, Kyle Whittingham moved all the work inside in their facility. He turned up the heat. He was dumping water on the field, on the turf to try to simulate the humidity. I mean, they're going atmospheric science out there in Salt Lake City to try and get themselves ready for Gainesville. If this game is going to be close, as the point spread suggests, then I agree, John. There are going to be points because if it's going to be close, it's because Anthony Richardson has really started to give a real spark to this Florida offense. And I think Anthony Richardson can do that. I don't have a ton of respect for Florida's defense. I think that Dexter on the defensive line is very good. And there are a few other single players that you can look at and be like, they would start for another SEC team. But that is not the case for a lot of this Gators defense. And so if this game is going to be close, points are going to be scored because Florida's defense won't have answers for Cam Rising. And Richardson is going to be able to get up and down the field with the Gators offense in a charged up environment in the swamp. 28-24 is a winner, and that seems like a likely score. I'm going to go over the total.
Go ahead, Emory.
I'm taking Florida in the points here. I feel like everyone is sleeping on this Florida Gators football team. Anthony Richardson is going to be a Heisman candidate. I feel like he's going to have a fantastic year. And when you're able to run the football like a Billy Napier offense can run the football, your run defense will be excellent as a byproduct of that. So with that being the backdrop, they'll be able to slow down Thomas in the run game of Utah and put a lot of pressure on Cam Rising. I don't think he can operate exclusively as a passer, more so operating well off balance. He won't have balance in this game, but Florida will put the nation on notice that this is a football team to deal with. They have a great offensive lineman and Osiris Torrance, another NFL prospect. I like Florida here to win outright, so I'm taking them plus the points against Utah.
Yeah, I agree. One Raging Cajun knows another Raging Cajun and Billy Napier, and Emory knows this guy can coach football. Napier is going to be a big plus for the Gators. We've talked about the home field situation in the swamp. It's the real deal. They've covered over 60% of their non-conference games over the last 40 years. It's just that good. The numbers are so high. The sample size is so big. It cannot be ignored that this home field is worth 7 points in a non-conference game over 40 years. So Kyle Whittingham knows what he's going into. It's a tough place to play. And Whittingham's bunch, Utah, and I love Kyle Whittingham. He's one of my favorite coaches. Love usually backing them to win the Pac-12 every year. But he's there to win the Pac-12. That's his job. He's 3-9 ATS the last 4 years in non-conference games. I think Anthony Richardson has a big day. 11 returning starters on offense with 8+ starts and 12 on defense for the Gators. This is still a very talented team now with a very good football coach.
Let's recap those picks from our gentlemen for the late selection of games. We all know Alabama's going to win. It's just a matter of by how much. Notre Dame, Kenny likes the first half over there versus Ohio State. John likes Notre Dame at the +16. He says also to go over. Chip also likes Notre Dame in this spot, but Emory's going with Ohio State with the 16. And then tight one between Utah and Florida. Kenny giving you a double play there. He likes Florida at the 2.5, plus money there, plus 115 on the money line. John and Chip going with the over. Emory liking Florida, also in that spot at plus 2.5. CBS Sports HQ presented by Capital One. Let's go all on the line for the Saturday slate with Kenny White, John Berger, Chip Patterson, and Emory Hunt. Kenny, I'll start with you. Give us your all on the line wager for Saturday.
I'm taking North Carolina +2. They're playing Appalachian State today. I know it's the biggest game of the year for App State, but I'm not sold on Sean Clark yet as a head coach. I'm not sure he'll be prepared. I love the game under the belt theory. Mac Brown has one. They ran up 600 yards. I know it was Florida A&M, 25 guys out. They took them lightly, but they did what they needed to do. They know where they need to be. Drake May looked great. They get a great run game out of Hampton. They ran for 300 yards. I think North Carolina is the far better football team. They should have been the favorite in this game. And with a game under their belt, North Carolina beats App State today.
Well, in the interest of not repeating what Kenny just said, so I'll give you a second one that I'm looking at. I'm looking at West Virginia covering 16.5. I think Hawaii is a disaster. That program had to bring in Timmy Chang. This is a team that got blown out by Vandy last week. Western Kentucky historically has been a great team throwing the football. They're not near as good. Same scheme, but I just think this is a situation where they can get it corrected from last week. I don't like what's going on in Hawaii. I'm going to go ahead and take Western Kentucky to cover these points against Hawaii.
I'm going to go back to Boone, and I'm going to go back to the Rock, because the things that I learned about North Carolina in the game against Florida A&M were that, A, Drake May is going to keep North Carolina's offense just as prolific in the post-Sam Howell era, and the defense didn't all of a sudden take a big leap with Gene Chizik with his arrival. So App State's got a physical offensive line. They've got a nasty running back room with a couple of great options. They keep those legs fresh. I think they're going to run the ball right at and through this North Carolina defense. Meanwhile, Drake May will be able to march right down the field, even without Josh Downs, who is not going to be playing in this game. I thought that there were a lot of other good wide receiver options who've stepped up, young players who are going to keep the Tar Heels able to score. And you mentioned Hampton, Kenny. That dude is just an absolute stud right now. Can't wait to see where he goes with his career. A lot of touchdowns here in App State, North Carolina, so I'm taking the over.
We welcome James Madison to the FBS today, and they take on Middle Tennessee State, and they're 5.5-point favorites. So I'm laying those points with James Madison. Kirk Cignetti is a fantastic coach and has a great football team. Keep an eye out for wide receiver Terrence Green, who's an NFL prospect who transferred in from Monmouth. This program has been building toward FBS membership since 1972 when they started. They had Gary Clark. They had Charles Haley. Now they get their opportunity at the big boys table in the Sun Best Conference. So I'm laying those points with James Madison. No way they lose their first FBS game today. So I like the Dukes.
All right, next up, it's the Moneyline Sprinkle. John, I'll start with you here. What do you have for us on the Moneyline on Saturday?
This is a value bet for me on this one. I'm going to look at Rutgers at plus 235 playing Boston College. I'm doing it for two reasons. You look at Boston College, clearly they're going to have better quarterback play, but they're replacing 5 offensive linemen, and we know what Schiano can do. This is a value play at plus 235. This is the guy that rolls up with a lot of confidence, has pulled 6 different upsets. And he's 6-1 against the spread against these guys. So I just think with the new offensive line from Boston College and the value play, I'm going to take Rutgers at plus 235 here.
Give me North Texas plus $3 today. The Mean Green playing their second game, a game under their belt. Grant Gunnels, the quarterback, came over from Memphis. Seth Luttrell's 7th-year head coach has got plenty of returning starters. 21 guys. Game under their belt, playing SMU. This isn't little brother versus big brother. This is little cousin. That's how lowly SMU probably thinks of North Texas. They're in for a battle today. North Texas beats SMU straight up with one of the upsets of the day.
Georgia State over South Carolina. I'm a big fan of quarterback Darian Granger and what he can do throwing the football. They have a great run game, excellent secondary. They'll give South Carolina problems. They nearly beat Auburn last year. I think they finished the drill and beat an SEC team today in South Carolina.
All right, so we got our all on the line plays. We got our money line plays. Chip, you're up.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you're trying to shut out the best one-win team in America, the Arizona Wildcats, who are going to be on CBS. We're going to have Brad, we're going to have Gary, we're going to have Jenny Dell in the house as we get to see the Arizona Wildcats take on San Diego State. Give me the Wildcats. I think that they win this thing outright.
All right, now let's wrap it up with the Saturday parlay. Emery, I'm going to start with you here. What do you have for us to make us some money with a $25 bet?
Well, here we go on the money line. You want to take Florida beating Utah. You want to take Army with their future first-round pick, Andre Carter at outside linebacker, beating Coastal. Arizona will beat San Diego State, Jayden DeLorean, the quarterback. And I also like UTSA beating Houston. Now, against the spread, I look for USC to start with a bang against Rice, lay those 33 points, and I save the best for last. America's team, the team with the #1 winning streak right now in college football, the Raging Cajuns, minus 14.5 against Southeastern Louisiana, and that's your parlay for the day.
America's team, I got it. I didn't get the memo. Emery's on fire here. I'm going to look at Oklahoma at minus 30.5 covering that number. I think a lot of points are going to be scored. I think Rice at plus, I had to do it, guys. I mean, I had to do this. Rice at 32.5 against USC. I think I need like 14 points. If I could just squeeze a couple of touchdowns on that, because I think USC is going to dump their starters out of that game early. But I'm sorry, I had to do it. I think UCLA covers the 23.5, and we talked about Western Kentucky and Hawaii. I picked Western Kentucky earlier, but I'm also going to take the over in that game.
All right, so we've got a couple of sweat-free plays. We're going to give you the Michigan money line, sweat-free, Georgia money line, sweat-free. Arkansas money line is going to be a little bit of a sweat. And then to really juice up some of this payout right here, we've got North Texas plus 10. Kenny just told you about his money line sprinkle. The number is not right on the mean green right now. Now's the time for us to take advantage, so I'll throw it in a mostly sweat-free parlay.
Love it, Chip. Love the mean green. I'm going to go two-team parlay for you, real easy. UCLA minus the points, over 56. Chip Kelly's got everybody back on offense. They're playing up-tempo. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's going to put up big numbers this year, and it will be over 100 degrees today in Pasadena. The defenses are going to be dog-tired in the second half. It's going to be a high-scoring shootout, but it's going to be UCLA by 5 touchdowns today.
All right, good stuff, gentlemen. I am just calculating the numbers here, making sure. The Wizard of Odds, Kenny White, wagering analyst John Berger, and Chip Patterson, Mr. Football Game Plan, Emery Hunt, joining us here on HQ as we get you to cash some tickets on Saturdays. We take a look at those parlay plays. Kenny White, his parlay is going to win you $66.12 on a $25 bet. John Berger getting you just over $300 with his. Going to pay out there. Payout's based, of course, on that $25 wager. And then we get Chip Patterson going mostly money line here, although he does like North Texas at plus 10. Chip's parlay is going to win you $50. Emery went big, real big. His $25 bet is going to get you just under $3,000, but you need a lot of things to come through, including America's team. Louisiana Lafayette, the Ragin' Cajuns, sitting at 14.5-point underdogs.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.